This is the biggest, most exciting transformation that any of us have ever gone through, and we are just at the beginning of it. It's a step out of enterprise software into the traditional applications world and into digital labor. You're really looking at $3 to $12 trillion market opportunity, maybe bigger. We've given birth to some new species. It's kind of a scary thing. We've only seen it sci-fi.
When you look back at previous technological waves, what feels different about AI?
Speed. This is happening much, much faster. The huge amount of innovation in AI has been open source. Everything that was true in AI a year ago or 6 months ago is not true today. If you weren't paying attention, you got left behind already. Every company and all of us are all going to have to shift into an incredible new world, and it's wide open.
Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh yeah, it's great to be with you guys. It's great to see you again.
Yeah. First question we have is, you've been in tech for a long time and you've seen a few big tech waves. You've been Salesforce, you founded over 25 years ago. Before that, you were at Oracle. You've seen the, rise and fall of the sort of dot-com bubble. You've seen cloud, you've seen crypto. Now you're seeing AI. Do you think the hype around AI is justified at the moment, or do you think we're maybe getting a little carried away?
Oh no, this is the biggest, most exciting transformation that any of us have ever gone through, and we are just at the beginning of it. And when you look at it on a financial basis, it's a step out of enterprise software into the traditional applications world and into digital labor, where you're really looking at $3 to $12 trillion market opportunity, maybe bigger. And this is just an opportunity where every company and all of us are all going to have to shift into an incredible new world. And yes, all driven by AI and what the future of AI looks like. And it's wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look back at previous technological waves, what feels different about AI?
Speed. This is happening much, much faster. And that's always been true for AI. And I can kind of give you my assessment of why that is.
Yeah, please.
So I think when you look at the last few decades of AI, things have gone very fast, and we're moving into this incredible technology, and where AI is right now is amazing. But one of the reasons that it is going fast and has gone fast, and especially in the last, call it 10 years, as we kind of shifted from deep learning and these predictive models and machine intelligence models, and then we kind of crossed into prompt engineering and then generative AI, and now we're moving into agentics and soon robotics, that moment of, that have all these next generation models, we call them large language models now, but of course we've always had models. And then we also have new reasoning models as well. So that's a huge breakthrough that's really come together in the last 12 months in a huge, incredible new way. And we're also all anticipating these kind of world models, which are the ones where we're going to have all this kind of incredible new sensory stuff. So it's going fast. Why is it going so fast? One of the reasons why it's going fast versus things that we've seen like in other industries, like you look at maybe other technology companies or even biomed companies or pharmaceutical companies, is because the huge amount of innovation in AI has been open source. And we've really seen that, especially starting with deep learning. And as that came out of a lot of the big universities, all of a sudden, it was like very clear to everybody exactly what was going on and what we could do. The early vision models, these kind of very beginning, just as we kind of stepped into prompt engineering, as we stepped into the LLMs, that this open source phenomenon, this is really different.
Yeah.
And so it lets us go much, much faster. And even in the reasoning models, it's just letting us go faster. Like everything that was true in AI a year ago or 6 months ago is not true today. It's like if you weren't paying attention, you got left behind already. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you have to really pay attention to what's going on. And there's a lot of nuances, but it's going fast because it's all open source. And a lot of these AI researchers are really into the open source phenomenon. They were in universities. They were professors, they were postgrads, they were, coming into this and posting their research, and it's out there. And that is what is cool. And so you have speed. You have a lot of speed. And it's also turning a lot of these things into commodities. So, as we're going up the chain, and you can see it for sure in the LLMs in the last 48 months, that it's kind of, they're all one feature or two features ahead of each other, but they're all about at the same level. And it's a big commodity. Or then you can have a big breakthrough like we saw with DeepSeek, where all of a sudden, oh, this is a real change from the traditional transformer model to a new kind of model that's much cheaper to deploy. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I'm like deploying at 90% less cost. And then my friends who are very competent initially are like, this isn't true. And then, oh no, it's actually true. And we didn't realize, what they had done, but they open sourced the whole thing into an MIT license, which means everybody can just use it. Really cool. And that is not how any other software has really come along in the last, call it, 3, 4, 5 decades. And you could see it like on your phone. It's not like iOS and, is an open source model that everyone
Yeah.
is like working on. It's like proprietary, and proprietary teams that are working in those things, the technology is just going to go slower. So, the iPhone still kind of looks like it did when we got our first iPhone, and, you know, that's not true
Yeah.
on AI. So
Yeah.
we're going faster.
Yeah. No, we couldn't agree more. On the research side, Hassan and I both used to live like one street down from the University of Toronto, which is where a lot of the big AI
Sure.
research happened. And like every 3 months, like, we'd meet these grads and researchers, and Hassan was working at a tech incubator at the University of Toronto. Every 3 to 6 months, you were just seeing something completely massive. And I think the pace is like not just kept up, it's like feels like it's going up significantly right now. So couldn't agree more with you on that assessment.
Yeah, these Canadian universities have also added a huge amount to the AI set, Waterloo, all these places. Like, you can really see, like, it's incredible what came out of Canada. And
Yeah.
yeah, I heard it's the 51st state now. Is that true?
Okay, I
Wow.
think let's see, like the
Yeah,
we have a
I've
new
known
prime
Mark
minister.
Carney for a long time. I'm like, it's like amazing to see him like as now the head of Canada. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
crazy election.
It was a crazy election. We
Yeah,
did not see that coming for sure.
yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
didn't for sure. He didn't see it.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Salesforce has been building with AI for quite a while. Einstein's been around for a few years. We have Agentforce now. Can you tell us and the listeners a little bit about what Salesforce is building with AI and what customers should be excited about?
Right. There's a lot to be excited about, but mostly right now, what I'm excited about is the customer success. So when we look at what's really going on with customers and what we're getting excited about, we're looking at some of these stories that are coming out. This product's been kind of out there now for 5 or 6 months, and so we're really starting to see these scaled stories. And one of the first stories, which continues to unfold, is OpenTable, where it was augmenting their employees, and now it's like extending to their consumer experiences. And this idea, you can even see it at Salesforce, with help.salesforce.com, that instead of speaking directly to a customer service rep or trying to deal with FAQs, that I'm interacting kind of how I did with a large language model, but with my customer support department. And I can ask it questions and help resolve issues, maybe increase my licenses, or, change my subscriptions. And it's amazing. So for Salesforce, for example, we've already done more than 500,000 conversations with customers directly on help.salesforce.com. And that has been very exciting. And then we have customers who are deploying this, not just OpenTable, but other amazing customers. Like, one really cool story is probably a product, Smartsheet, which is this kind of cool cloud-based spreadsheet. And they've put it right inside their product. So not only are the end users getting support and help, but you can increase and decrease your licenses and all of this. Another really great story is Remarkable, the pad that you can draw
Yeah.
on. You can go there, you can start to work with the agent to get help. Like, I did it myself. Like, I need to replace my stylus. How do I do that? Um, and airlines, I just got back from a trip to Singapore Air, who we've worked with for like 8 years on working on their sales org, on their service org, on their marketing org. They're building an agentic layer over the whole company. And, that's going to let people get a level of service and support and even sales that they were not able to do it before. And Finnair, who has 11 million consumers, is also deploying. So that's cool. These are stories that are happening much faster than I would have anticipated. I feel I'm much more in a race. I think that, we have these things happening all over the world. This is technology that requires, a level of implementation. They're using our data cloud. They have to get their data right. They're shaping the responses of these agents. They're installing these guardrails. There's a semantic layer. There's an action layer. There's a data layer. And we're super inspired by it. And we even introduced, you probably don't follow what's going on with Tableau, which is one of our products in data analytics and business intelligence. It's a company we bought like 8 years ago, but we have completely rebuilt the product. Last week at the Tableau user conference in San Diego, we launched the new version, and it's a big deal. And I'll explain to you why. Because it's not only the Tableau that everybody loves, the familiarity, the kind of functionality, but we put it on top of our data cloud, which, when we bought the company, they never had that idea that there was a kind of a client-server almost relationship where you had the shared data repository. So that's awesome because you're getting all the data from your company, and all of our apps are in that data cloud, and it's federated out to all these other data repositories in your company, like a Snowflake or a Databricks or a Redshift or a BigQuery or something like that. But then not only do you have the Tableau that you love, the data cloud integration, there's also an agentic layer on Tableau, and Agentforce is there. So you have a triad or a trinity. You have the app, the data, and the agent. And why that's important is I was with a customer yesterday. He was using a large language model to do some very sophisticated simulations. I won't go into the technical details, but it was like really fascinating and cool, and you'd relate to it. But then I was like saying to myself, this isn't exactly what they want to be doing, because what they're doing is they're working with this large language model, which is kind of like a text in and text out, and maybe all right, let's say it's multimodal, and they're like throwing stuff into it, and then there's stuff coming out. And they're so excited about the output, and they can't believe it, and they've had these wow moments, and then, there's a hype cycle with, you're in this exercise, and of course you're getting these amazing things, and at some moment you'll be deflated and going, well, that answer isn't very good. Ask another, tune your prompt. But here's the thing. With Tableau, though, as the front end to the large language model, and you're interfacing, you're also seeing the visualizations with it. And that is really cool. And I think like for this one specific customer, I was saying to myself, they would be going faster and getting more excited. And they were super excited about what they're doing in large language model if they were using this Tableau. We call it Tableau Next, because the repository would be getting filled with the data, and instead they're having to load all the stuff into the large language model. And then the second piece is the visualizations are happening. If you know how Tableau works, these kind of visualizations that can come out of it are amazing. So then the combination of these two things, you're just going to go faster, because the reality is that, we're still the ones writing the prompts, at least for now. And we're still the ones who are like asking the questions, at least for now. So we're like saying, hey, I'm running my business, and here's my quarter, and here's my products, and here's my geos, and how's my business doing, and where should I focus, and what should I do, and all of these things. But just having that then stream of text back, or even a couple of whatever images, isn't what I want. What I really want is I want that incredible visualization. So that idea, it would just crossed a lot of bridges, right? Which is that, yes, I have conversational capabilities in my business. I can have digital labor. I can augment my employees. I can have more productivity. But in this case, I'm kind of doing something where I'm getting a level of enlightenment I cannot really get with any other capability. So all of these things are important. It's not like just one is important. Number one is employees do want to be augmented with these things. Like we're augmenting our stuff personally, and we want to augment ourselves professionally. Two is we want more productivity where, hey, the computer's just resolving some of this stuff on its own. The person wants to change their password, improve their subscription rate. We don't need a human in the loop on that. And then the third piece is I'm running something, managing something that's incredibly sophisticated. I have a huge management team. We're on this. I really want the software to be running side by side with me, and I need a lot of information visually, in text and images and video, in every possible way. And I need real enterprise software expertise, security, sharing. So all of these things are important and can work. So this is a really cool moment in enterprise software as we kind of start to come out with the next, iteration.
It's awesome, Mark, right? Like the day I worked at Snowflake like early on a few years ago, and like, just like the data app and the agent first combination you're talking about, like that just sounds phenomenal. And if you can with the real-time visualizations, it just, I think, makes the life of an enterprise user so much easier if you can see that impact, the data feeding in, and like that's amazing to hear, like the changes like you've made at the Tableau and like how it's kind of like refining.
We probably ingested about 1.5 trillion records from Snowflake last
Wow.
week. You probably remember in the early days of Snowflake, we kind of provided our API out so
Yeah,
you would have like
I worked
things
on
to
the
work with.
integration with your Salesforce team early on, actually.
Yeah. And that was an incredible investment we made. I think we made 1.6 billion on our Snowflake investment when it went public.
Congrats.
And that idea was we helped Snowflake get going by bringing data into the platform. But today, Snowflake is giving us way more data back because they've been able to aggregate data from so many different data sources. And now our data cloud is federated to Snowflake. So
Yeah,
our apps are able to benefit from that integration, bidirectional integration. And then,
so powerful.
when we're running Tableau, right? So here we're running Tableau on our data cloud, but it's federated off to Snowflake and grabbing that stuff and dropping it back in. So that's different than where we were, wouldn't you say, like even just 2 or 3 years ago? And that's a whole different, it's not that people weren't using Tableau on top of Snowflake
Yeah,
before, but this is a much more sophisticated and much more exciting, next generation of enterprise software.
100%. I was looking at like one of your release notes from the spring 25, and I saw you guys release this reasoning engine called the Atlas Reasoning Engine and some library of pre-built skills. I thought that's like really cool, very powerful. And we're just curious to know like any customer success stories of folks who are already using it, or like what powers that gives like an enterprise user on day one if they just like open up their Salesforce and they're like, holy shit, we have this reasoning engine now available.
Reasoning is the path to accuracy. So in large language models, we realize that because they're word models, they inherently have some level of inaccuracy, or I guess, we've called them hallucinations, or where things just don't really make sense because it's this word, this word, and then you get your answer. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes it does not work. And we've all had that experience, right? Is that a fair characterization? Now we couple the large language model, the reasoning model. Reasoning model is different. As the reasoning model is kind of takes on the prompt and then gets the answer from the LLM, then it starts to try to diagnose and figure out exactly what its answer is going to be. And then as it comes up with its answer, it then keeps that knowledge, and it doesn't have some static data set that's driving it like an LLM. It has something that's constantly improving. Now, I don't know if that's the path to AGI or not. Some people think it is, that these reasoning models are now running and they're stacking and building their own kind of, almost like synthetic data sources. It's not exactly a synthetic data source, but it kind of, you're stacking each answer up, so you're getting more and more knowledge. These two things together, the LLM with its data set, combined with the reasoning model with its data set that's more dynamic, this is giving us a much higher level of accuracy. So when we work with we're working with a large healthcare company, or we're largely working with a large media company. Actually, the large media company is right here. It's Disney.
Yeah.
So with Disney, we're seeing very good accuracy rates like in the 90s because we're also coupling it with the reasoning model. And before that, I would say that the accuracy rates were more in the 60s. So it's a big leap in terms of capability when you couple LLMs and reasoning models together.
That's amazing. Mark, I was reading one of your op-eds in the Time magazine, and I think you coined this term, the unlimited age. And in your like minds, I'm curious to know, like, what do you think, like, with this new LLM wave, what feels unlimited? Is that like it's unlocking new creativity for us? It's unlocked more bandwidth, compassion, just productivity? What feels unlimited? Like, I'm sure, like the readers, like our listeners, would love to hear that.
It's not compassion because, computers don't suffer, so they can't really be compassionate. So if they don't suffer, they're not gonna really have compassion. I heard that from a friend of mine many years ago, and I would say that when we talk about the unlimited age, it's kind of a scary idea. At least it's scary to me. Maybe it's not scary to a lot of people, but the idea that the computer and the intelligence gets more and more, and we move into these worlds where more and more of the coding, maybe even all the coding, is being done simultaneously by the computer, and then all of a sudden, the computer is able to interface with robotic systems or manufacturing systems and can make its own robots and rockets and goes into space and is self-replicating and building its own worlds, in the future. And it's like some AI is out there now, running some factory on some planet, building some robots, and maybe we're tapped into it somehow through some brain machine interface. And it's like, that's the unlimited age where it's just like, it's gone,
Yeah.
that we've given birth to some new species. It's kind of a scary thing. I think it's like, we've only seen it sci-fi.
Yeah.
And is that what's really happening right now? I think that there's a lot of people who think that. Our futurist is sitting over here on this couch. He was involved in writing these movies like Minority Report and War Games, or we saw the movie like Her or Terminator. That's the unlimited age, and, I don't know if I'm ready for it or not, but it does seem like we should talk about it because it seems like we're all starting to experience what could be about to happen,
I think the conversation is
and
conversation is so critical, right? Like, helps us understand and
yeah.
prepare, like
Well,
for
we know we're not there completely because
yeah,
did you realize that Zane said, "Oh, I'm gonna start the recording now"?
yeah,
Fair
exactly. He's
enough.
just like
Yeah.
he still has to do the click.
There was no AI that said, "I'm gonna start the recording
Recording
now."
now.
"Oh, I
Yeah.
see Mark is here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
start the recording now." No, we still need Zane. Zane still has a role. He goes, "Nope, I'm gonna start the recording now." So that's how we know we're not quite there yet, right?
Yeah.
That's not the unlimited age because we're limited still by Zane.
Pretty
He's one of
much.
the limits. But when we
He's
don't
the
have Zane, then we become unlimited.
Yeah.
unlimited age.
Yeah.
No, so Mark, like I think one thing you had mentioned, and as you can talk about this unlimited age and the coding changing, I think in your recent quarterly financial results at Salesforce, you talked about like you're seeing significant productivity gain at an engineering level, and Salesforce may not hire significant amount of engineers this year or the next year. I'm just curious to know, like, is that just you're implementing now LLMs across the board in your product org, engineering org, and that's where like the gains are coming, and that's where you see agents becoming a key part of your organization now as an internal teams as well?
Right, so this is the CEO, Mark, now is, number 1 saying, "Hey, did you see Cursor? Did you see Windsurf?" Like, we did it ourselves. You probably know one of the first coding engines was ours, CodeGen, which was
Yes.
an LLM just doing coding. So I would say, number 1, we have our own internal products called CodeGenie. I would say that, um, number 1 is, yeah, these engineers should be getting more productive right now. This is a moment of productivity. So we were really saying 30%. Our head of engineering came to me and said he wants 50% more engineering capability this year. There's it's an organizational issue. We're not running, it's not 5 people and a startup. We're like a big organization. It's going to require some management, change management. And yeah, we want to target 50% productivity this year. And not just there, but in support, we talked about also, right? And services that we provide, professional services for our customers. So all of these things together, we want all of these things to have more productivity. But where you also know that I'm hiring more salespeople this year because I still need to get to more customers, and that this level, like, think about the kind of explanations and capabilities that we're really talking about, and the nuances and the newness of all of these things. There's still a lot of face-to-face in the B2B software world that I'm in.
Yeah. Mark, you've also talked about, as a CEO, learning how to manage AIs. Like it's no longer just about managing employees. You have to learn how to manage a team of AIs going forward. Can you maybe give us a little bit of color around that as well?
Yeah, there's no question that that's true, and we already talked about help.salesforce.com as a critical part of my support organization. I was just managing our sales team in sales org, and we're talking about our sales agents and our SDR capabilities as well. And another thing is, like, when I'm writing the business plan myself for the fiscal year, you should know that this is the third year in a row that I'm not only just sitting with another executive writing the business plan for the year, but I'm also using an AI. So it's the three of us. It's me, this other executive, and the AI. And I will ask the AI questions like, hey, how does this compare to what my competitor is doing? Give me a letter grade on this idea. Am I considering all aspects of this, market? Where am I missing out? And in some areas, even it doesn't know or isn't able to put things together. But in a lot of areas, it is. Like, I'll tell you that because I've been using the AI for the last 3 years, there's definitely things that I found that I would not have found. But even like yesterday, I came up with something where I'm like, this is interesting. I hadn't really thought about this before. This is a good idea. We should be focused on this. And it was not in any of the AI responses. I went back and looked, and I'm like, the AI still doesn't, it knows what it knows, but it doesn't completely know what it doesn't know, and coming up with something completely new or totally out of the box, it's good in some of those areas. I'm sure you've done it, but in some of those areas, luckily, we still have a role. So Zane, you're still hired, and Hassan and I are still
Absolutely.
still adding value to society for now. So that's
Yeah.
good news.
I just have one final quick question. So Hassan and I know we're at the intersection of tech and media. You are at a very unique place because obviously, you founded Salesforce, but you also own Time Magazine. With the amount of AI generated content that's going to be out there, it looks like, very soon there's going to be more AI generated content on the internet than human generated content. How do you think about the future of media and what our relationship as humans to media is going to look like?
Well, I think it's changing a lot, and then at some level, it's not changing. I owned Time Magazine a Tuesday of last week. About 1 week ago, we got a call, urgent call. Please come to the Oval Office. President wants to talk Time Magazine.
Oh, wow.
So our editors and our photographers and our videographers all got on the plane from New York, flew down there to Washington, D.C., rolled into the Oval Office, and we had the photographer who did the 2015 cover and took a picture, did a long form interview on Friday, published the cover on Friday, published the long form interview, and there's nothing else like it in media last week.
Yeah.
There's no other press conference or anything else that's at all like what we produced. It was not AI produced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was an important piece of journalism. If you didn't read it, you should read it. It's like, this is worthwhile. And that's important, that there is that level of transparency, that we're doing the long form, that we wrote an article about it, but we also did the long form interview. And AI was not on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if we used AI to touch up the photo or not. I don't think so. I think we just ran the photo as is. And I think it was just like, here we go. So that's it. I think in putting together big lists like the Time 100 and all those things, we can put together our list and then say, did we forget somebody? Who else would you put on that list? How would you look at this? Is this comprehensive? Those are things the AI is very good at, right?
Yeah.
Because the AI is able to look at the whole world. And maybe our writers who are kind of in their own New York world, don't know about something that's happening in Canada
Yeah.
or India or some other country, and they might say, hey, did you know Mark Carney's not on your Time 100 list? He wasn't, by the way. So the Time 100 most influential event, which was, last week, Thursday in New York, and a big Time 100 summit, and we published the Time 100 list, and now Mark Carney is the head of Canada. He's not on the list. He should be on that list. maybe the Time 100, maybe the AI would have seen it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of
Um,
funny. It's two funny stories, right?
yeah,
So it's just new
absolutely.
ways to look at these things.
So Mark, like two more questions and we can wrap up. Like you're always very curious to know, like, like we get a lot of folks on the podcast and want to know, like, how do you use AI on a day-to-day basis, considering you're like CEO of like one of the most well-known company of our age, current age. Like, how do you kind of use AI on a day-to-day basis? What are some of your favorite apps which you're using?
Well, I have all of the AI apps on my phone. So, and I'm going between all of them. I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is they're all actually a little bit different. Some have different strengths and some have different weaknesses. And, where I'm using it is in asking questions about my business, like we talked about. But even like I have a friend of mine who just had surgery on her hand 2 weeks ago, and I can see that her healing is not going as well as it should be going. And I was wondering, it's an older woman, she's in her mid to late 70s. And I'm like, well, should she be using the hyperbaric chamber? Because that can provide a lot of healing in this environment, and post-surgically, and what are the studies on that, and what are the rates, and how often? And yeah, I'm using it like that. I'm using it to ask questions. I'm also just asking it a lot of basic questions. I'm probably going to it maybe more than I am going to a normal search engine. So that's important. And I'm using it for the kind of things that I'm sure a lot of people use it for, like editing and for summarization.
Yep.
Or if I get a huge amount of content and I want to have something a little summarized, that's important to me. But I noticed that it's still, there's gaps. And I'll give you one of the areas is Apple has CarPlay. I use it a lot, and it has a summarization of like text messages now. And it's just not as good as it could be. So I think there's still gaps, and I think that where we'll be, this isn't a very aggressive statement, but where we'll be, even just 2 or 3 years from now, are gonna be light years away from where we are now, that this thing is really moving with speed. And I went to a conference last week with a lot of AI folks, and wow, they all have a lot of anxiety around where AI is going, so that was extremely interesting.
So maybe that could be like one thing we can wrap up with. Like, what are some things that you are very excited about, which, considering you also went to this conference, you think are coming up in the next 12 months?
Well, I think it's kind of what we talked about, the unlimited age. Like, we can talk about augmenting our employees, making them more productive, providing new levels of enlightenment with new next generation tools. But when we do get to that moment where Zane is not telling it to start the recording, but it knows, it's guiding us, it's maybe
Yeah.
prompting us, it's giving us subtitles on the bottom of the screen, it's telling you to ask these questions based on what I'm saying, which is what's not happening right now. I don't think you have it set up like that. And AI is more pervasive. I'm in my office here and there is no robots running around. I have no AGI here. We're still kind of we're still in the limited age.
Yeah.
Still in a
We're not
co-pilot
in
age
the
to some
we're
extent.
not in the unlimited age. What's that?
Like a co-pilot age right now. It's like an assistant to us.
Oh God, that's the Clippy age, the co-pilot age.
Yeah.
Clippy age.
We're out of that age.
You're
We're
out of
into
that
the
age.
agentic age.
We're in the
We're
Clippy age.
definitely
Yep.
into the agentic age.
Agentic
So
age.
thank
Okay.
God we left that co-pilot Clippy age behind.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's the agentic age. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in the agentic age, and we'll move into the robotic age at some point. You've all seen, like, there's hundreds of companies working on these humanoid robots, and those potentially could be very cool with the models that they're building. And you've probably seen, like, the Aloha model out of Stanford and others, and this idea that they can do, like, hey, you're getting home and your dinner's gonna be made by, this humanoid robot before you get there, and house will be clean, and
Yeah.
your laundry will be folded.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not yet, though. I guarantee neither one of you, all of your laundry is gonna be folded when you get home tonight, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. We still gotta go do that. 100%.
see, we're still in the limited age, but I
Yeah.
hope that we move into the unlimited age. It'll be extremely, I mean, it's gonna be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we're looking at this stuff every single day, and the pace of progress is pretty crazy. I don't know if you saw the AI 2027 paper. I was reading that, about how AI can unfold over, like the next 10 years and how it's looking with, the US, the China, the arms race, and having like an unaligned AI and so on. So I think it's an incredibly both exciting and scary time to be in. Uh, with that, Mark, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
incredibly informative and educational for us. Any last words before we wrap this up?
Yeah, well, we don't wanna move into the unlimited, unaligned age. Like, you just opened that door just briefly when you said
Yeah.
you're looking at that paper and you're talking about, "Oh, unaligned AI." Yeah, unaligned AI and an unlimited age may not be the best possible combination for humanity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree with more with that. Thank you, Mark, so much for this. Really appreciate
It's
this.
great to see you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks so
great to
much for
see you as
doing
well. Thank
this.
you so much for
Okay,
this.
all the best.
All
Bye
Thank
right.
you
now.
so much, Mark.